got to have fun. So everybody stand on your feet. Got a little looser, a little bit. How many of you have heard me speak before? Okay, who has never heard me speak ever in your life? Everybody's heard me just about. One, okay, maybe two. All right, here's the deal. These kind of sessions can be real stiff, and if you're not careful, it can get real formal. And one of the things that really impressed me years ago, a guy got up, and his name was Jerry Cook out of Oregon, and he said, they gave this introduction of who he was. I pastor a church in Savannah, and I got a few thousand people, blah, 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 and a little education, a few degrees that might be impressive a little bit. But at the end of the day, he said, let me, first of all, be free from having to be impressive. That stayed with me all my life. I've been pastoring for 37 years, okay? And if you didn't hear it, I do pastor in Savannah, Georgia, a great church called Overcoming by Faith. But I'm an honorary member here, amen? Come on, right? And here's the cool thing. I've been married for 38 years. 38 years. So what we're going to do is flip the switch a little bit. I got my stuff all organized. I did work hard on this, okay? But because I feel like you need to get to know me, and it needs to be fun from the gate, we'll have a lot of interaction. You get to ask me questions, not during the actual teaching itself, but there'll be pauses where you can ask me questions. And so I'm going to start with questions. I'm going to flip the switch. So what we're going to do is you're going to come up with things I hope you talk about. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes you go a place and the guy talks forever about stuff he's already worked on. Here is the deal. I have given you all my notes. I do that all the time. I do it at my church. I do it here. Ricky, R-I-C-K-Y, temple.com. Everything. The PowerPoints are yours. The notes are yours. The exact notes that I use are all yours. So you write and scribble if you want. That's fine. You know, stuff that just, but you don't have to worry about not having the notes. And I'm going to leave them up for 7 days. How many days am I going to leave them up? 7 days. 7 days. But here's the kicker, okay? To find them, you're going to have to go to resources. What are you going to go to? Resources. Today, they're on the main page, but they're going to move. Something else has to go there by tomorrow or by Sunday. So what you're going to do is go to resources, and you'll see Word of Faith, marriage. Is that good enough? Yes. Under what? Resources. You'll say Word of Faith, marriage, and it'll be right there, obvious to you. I may even have my team put it right there. We'll figure it out. You'll see either be right on the front or it'll be right under resources, and you click into it, and then you have all the notes. Now, do me a favor. Go hug somebody and talk loud for a minute and say hi. I'll come back. Come on. Go say hi. Talk loud. Here's the deal. The deal is that you, oh, good, I control it. Okay, cool. Here's the deal. You get to ask me a question or two. My wife's going to be right here, so here you go. Ms. Temple, we're going to let you join me for a minute. And I'm going to give you, this is my wife, Diane, 38 years, 2 kids, 36 and 31 in December. No, September.
How old are they? They're grown.
They're grown.
They're grown and gone.
So here's the deal with us. You get the privilege of talking to 2 people who have lived through the cycle. Some people, they're new at this. Some people in here, I think, are considering marriage. And so you came to see if you really want to do this or not. So you can ask us a wide range of questions. Now, this will be part of how we do it, period. My power is too high. Your love juices are too strong. So you get close to me, that kind of stuff happens. No, you just stand back when you don't get that close. Okay, watch yourself. So here's the deal. Here's the deal. So what's going to happen is I just want to get a sample of what you want to ask me. So I hope you talk about and you finish the sentence. Now, you can't give a sermon. You got to give a sentence. Say a sentence. Okay. Well, I really want to talk about, I hope you get, because I have a lot of issues, and I hope, you know what I'm saying? No, all that's too much. Ready? So here we go. I hope you talk about, raise your hand, commit your life, raise your hand. I hope you talk about, I hope you talk about blended families. Okay. I hope you talk about money. I hope you talk about Healing after life's issues, all the things that come into your life and in marriage. How many of you have needed some healing after some marriage issues? Raise your hand. You got, now some of y'all ain't had no issues? You ain't been married long enough, I'm gonna tell you now. Shoot. Issues, relationship, communication, all kind of things. I hope you talk about transitioning after the kids are gone. Somebody asked me a question once. No, I asked somebody a question. Let me get it right. And I said, what's it like when the kids leave? He said, it's like this. Taking a hose, sticking it to the house, and sucking all the energy out. And here's the good part. When you leave, Diane, what is it like when the kids leave?
When the kids leave, it's so quiet.
I'm not loud?
No, you're not. I'm loud. You're quiet.
What am I like okay, up here I'm like this. What am I like at home?
I have to find you.
You have to find me?
Yeah.
I live with
Sometimes I have to call you on the cell phone to find you.
She probably has a big house. That's not my fault, right? Right? She asked for it, right? She asked for a big house. So what can I say? Come up here for a second so they can see you a little bit. So at home I'm kind of a what? Kind of
hermit.
Hermit?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yes.
Did we talk before this session or anything? Did you like?
They know that. If
No,
you
they
guys,
don't know that.
He's your Uncle Ricky, right? And you guys have heard that he's all in front of everybody, but at home, he is basically to himself. He will be in the dark, you know, he'll read. I have to find him.
So when the kids left,
It was quite, well, my son is a musician, kind of artsy person.
Noisy.
And so we were just raised with,
Oh my God.
beating on furniture, and then he went from beating on furniture to beating on, playing drums and then keys and saxophone and anything that can make noise. So, and even when we put a headset on him, you could still hear the keys just going, so he was always noisy. My daughter, on the other hand, she doesn't play an instrument, but anytime she was mad with somebody, she starts singing, God has smiled on me, so it was always noise in the house, and I'm allowed, just a tad loud, to speaking.
say that again.
I come from a family of
Very
school
loud.
teachers.
Very loud.
So our natural voices are quite strong, and we believe in talking. Even though I'm naturally shy, I'm a shy person, but when I'm not in my shy mood, I talk loud, and I think it's normal. I think it's a normal volume.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's usually quite noisy. And while he was raised an only child, and he is
You're
a
kind of
reader.
nodding like that's special news, right? You're like, that's great.
He's
Right,
only
right,
child,
right.
likes
Only
reading,
child.
silence, likes the dark, just that normal thing where, how your spouse is opposite, that's normal.
See, what you're going to learn is, and what you learn when your kids leave, is you learn you're different. Because your kids can hide a lot of things. If you had a space before you had kids, you kind of learned that. But you haven't lived. It's amazing how you almost get reintroduced to each other when your kids leave. And that's why I think one of the benefits of our relationship, now we have a good marriage, right?
Yes, and because we've seen that in other couples, once the kids are gone, they don't even know how to relate because the only common bond they had was kids. We made sure that even through every single stage, from toddlers all the way to adult kids, that we maintained a close relationship with each other, because we know, bottom line, those cute little people are going to leave you, and he would say it all the time, they're going to leave. So we have to be able to relate because they're going to leave. And they did. They only come back on holidays.
You assume in marriage that this season is permanent. You assume the things you face today are permanent things, but they're not. They're temporary. And the goal is learning how to adjust to the climate. Somebody asked me one time, I went to get her some flowers, and I was in my special mood, and I bought these really, really expensive flowers, and she told me to stop buying them, but I bought them, and the ladies asked me, said, how did you, I think at that time we've been married 20, 25 years, and they said, how did you make it so long? I said, it's very simple. Adjust to the climb. Say that with me, please. Come on. Adjust to the climb. Adjusting to the climb of marriage, because there's a mountain, it's like a mountain. And that's one of the mountains you climb when they leave. So we'll come back to that more later. Somebody else, what do you hope I talk about? I hope you talk about, yes sir. Conflict, how to fight fair, no cheating, know your mama, right? Right? What else? In-laws. Outlaws, in-laws. Yes. Caring for aging parents. Okay. Anybody else? Get a couple, three more. Yes. Marriage at middle age. That age thing. Isn't that something? I am 60 years old. Don't say wow. It is something. As you age, it changes. Your body changes, your moods change, a lot of things change. Two more? Yes. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're done after that. Yes.
How to plan.
How to what now? Plan. P-L-A-N, you're saying? Yes. What else?
Nurturing the love language.
Nurturing the love language. That's right. Can't count, like Spanish and Portuguese right there. But that's close, Spanish and Portuguese. Yeah, it is. Spanish and English. Yes.
Foreplay outside of the bed.
Foreplay. Big word. All right. Everybody say Jesus. That's good stuff. Sex. Nobody said it yet. That's close. I'll take that one. That's to get you in the land. All right. Okay. Where we at? Kingdom building together. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm going to talk for a minute. I want to say, I think part of this series that we're going to do today and tomorrow is tied to a theme that I've been teaching on, and it's part of my theme for the year. I pick a theme every year, and this one is about being courageous, and it's about having courageous conversations about things in your life. I believe that there comes a moment in your life when you have to have courageous conversations, where you sit down and say, we need to have some courageous conversations about the kinds of things we just mentioned. What are the things in your life and in your marriage that really need to be talked about? And what are the things that you can identify and say, these are the things, these 5 things, these 7 things, these 8 things are just one area. If it could be sex, it could be money, it could be, we got a blended family. We need to make plans. We have no direction in regards to vacations or time off. We're just kind of floating. We need to sit down and have a courageous conversation. And once we have that conversation, we need to secondly make some courageous changes. Can you say courageous changes? Courageous changes. You've got to sit back and decide, what do we need to talk about? And then after we talk, what changes do we need to make? Because unless you make changes, it's all talk. And a lot of times you'll have these big moments of discussion with no specific plan to change. You've got to change. So everybody say courageous conversations. Courageous conversations. Courageous changes. Courageous changes. Courageous plans. Courageous plans. You need a plan. After we talk about what needs to change, we need a plan. And a plan is what's going to make you different. I've been pastoring for 37 years. My marriage is strong. Our relationship is strong. And we're different. We're different in a lot of ways. I didn't know that I was an introvert at home. But the nature of my job, all these sermons, this stuff doesn't fall out the sky. And so you tend to be sort of meditative and prayerful, and there's a whole bunch of time invested in this. But we have planned time. Every Monday is Diane's Day. We did that for years, and it's always been a standard. If you don't plan sex, plan time out, plan time to be with the kids, plan time to exercise, plan. Everybody say plan. Plan. Courageous conversation, courageous changes, and then make courageous plans. This is what we will do. And you've got to mean it. And then you got to make this 4th step. You ready? You've got to invest in that. And that's what I call courageous wealth. Can you say courageous wealth? Courageous investments, wealth investments, economic investment. You make a plan to go on vacation, but you don't save for it. You make a plan to spend time together, but you don't have in place the resources to do that. You need to put those resources in place. And once you come up with, a plan, and you resource it, Then you got to do this next step. You ready? You got to have courageous priorities. You've got to say, this goes first, not that. So based on my conversation with myself, based on the changes I want to make and the plans I come up with, I have resourced my life to make sure that my priorities are clear. These are the things I do first. And if I don't put Diane somewhere on the calendar on a weekly basis, and I really believe that God designed us to live in 7-day cycles. That's what he modeled in creation. If 6 days you work and 7 days we stop, you have to have a stop day. If you don't have a stop day, you're not making as much money as you could make. People who work 7 days a week don't make as much as those who stop. You refresh your brain, you retool, and you last. I am 37 years into this and I still like it. It scares people that I don't want to retire yet. Because at 60 years old, they start asking you, so when are you leaving? When are you? Most of my friends, that's their question. Are you going to retire soon? 37 years, long time on the job. But imagine if you pace yourself, you can still be in love at 37 years. But if you burn yourself out and you allow yourself to be frustrated because your priorities are everywhere, I would venture to say that a lot of your marriages could be helped if you just took the advice I just gave you. If you just paused for a minute and said, okay, we've heard Pastor Rick for a day and a half. What changes do we need to make? What changes do we need to make? And here's what you can do. If you get 2 pieces of paper, this is homework, you ready? And everybody writes what changes they would like to make. Just write them down and then swap and talk about it. Don't argue about it. Repeat that with me, please. Say, don't argue about it. We're not going to fight about this. We just want to know what's in your brain. I want to know what you're thinking. That's why I stopped at the beginning of this and said, okay, I've got notes. I got stuff I can talk for 3 days. That's not why I'm here. I need to know what's in your mind. Because it's when people feel as if you're talking about something that they're interested in, then they'll engage in the conversation. I've learned something about preaching. They used to call it the hook, look, book, took method when you're preaching. It's a style, right? It's a little tool. So when you're going to preach, right, they tell you, first you got to hook people. I've got a couple of minutes to get you hooked in this conversation. So if I started off like this, today I'm going to talk about the ecclesiastical implications of theology and the Word of God over the history of mankind. You are really with me, right? I don't know what you even said, right? But if I flip it and said, are you mad, frustrated because your relationship is not what you thought? You are mad. As a matter of fact, you are disappointed and don't know what to do about it. How do you manage a disappointing relationship? I hooked you. Now you say, well, yeah, I might can relate to that. See? Or have you ever dated somebody and was disappointed? You ever went out on a bad date? Yeah, and then you all of a sudden see interest. Once I hook you, I get you to look. I get you to look, and hopefully I get you to look in the book, the Bible. And once I get you to look in the Bible to see this, that's when we take you someplace that will help you. If you're going to talk to your spouse, start with what they're interested in, not you. A courageous conversation is not a courageous conversation if it's only about what you're interested in. It's when I realize that she thinks a certain way and that's important to her. I know where I'm at. My goal is to find out where you are. It's when I do that I change the game. It's truly a courageous conversation. And so what I want to do is take a few minutes to kind of explain a few things to you. And I'm going to jump ahead if I can, and I want to talk about marriage. And I want to describe it to you, and I want to show you some principles about marriage that I think are helpful. Look at your slides above you there, and I want you to see how marriage is viewed and how this whole thing called marriage changes in people's lives. When you understand it, when you're clear about it. Traditionally, in the United States, there has been a general consensus that the passage to adulthood goes through marriage. That used to be true. People used to think that marriage was the starting place. Today's role of marriage as an essential part of the transition to adulthood has become less defined. So now people no longer believe that marriage is the pathway. You'd be surprised how many people view it that way. With the increasing society acceptance of cohabitation out of wedlock, births and single parenting marriages has become less of a prerequisite and more of an optional part in the process than in the previous decade. So people no longer see marriage the same. Millennials are getting married less often and much later in life than previous generation. Millennials put careers first, especially women. That's interesting. They take full advantage of the opportunities that weren't available to them in decades before. In 2000, there were 2.3 million marriages within a population of 281 million. That's in 2000. Comparatively, in 2010, even though the population has grown to over 308 million, the number of marriage decreased to under 2.1 million. As of 2013, the average age men in the United States tie the knot was 29. Women, how old? 26. Look at that. As of 2017, the average age men in the United States tied the knot was 29.5 and women 27. Total number of married couples in the United States increased to 60.8 million in 2017, an increase of 45.47 million people. So you do have more people technically who are married now than before. If you go back to the year of 1970. But what I want you to watch this now. Even though marriage has changed, marriage has become more complicated. A lot of people are married, 60 plus million people are married, but it's complicated. And I want you to think about this for a second. There are 5 ways marriage is harder now than it was years ago. Society, social media conflicts, you'll love this one, with couples, quality of time. People feel that given a choice of spending time with each other or their smartphone, oftentimes they'll spend time with their smartphone. You ever go out to dinner and now you don't talk? If you're not careful, what you'll spend all your time doing is checking your emails. It has become a very fascinating thing. I saw something that Denzel Washington did the other day where he asked the question, he says, does your smartphone have you or do you have it? Marriage is changing. Society's view of marriage is changing. And so you technically, in many ways, are becoming a dinosaur. A lot of your friends are not as excited about marriage. They are less interested in what marriage can offer them. Their view has changed. Relationships are given less priority. More privacy means more infidelity. Couples, you can hide your sin now. It's a lot easier than back in the day. If you're going to do something, you had to really go out and work hard to do it. But now it's right in your house, in your cell phone, on your TV. Couples are having a harder time communicating. People are entering marriage with more baggage than before. It's not like it used to be. What's interesting is marriages around the world are troubled. It's not just the United States. The trend for marriage difficulty is something that is amazing to watch. Rome, Ottawa, the average marriage lasts 18 years in Rome. In Canada, in Ottawa, Canada, 13.8 years. Paris, 13 years. New York City, 12.2 years. Sydney, 12 years. Mexico, 12 years. Marriages, a lot of the marriages that end in divorce don't last long. Somewhere around 10 years, they start having trouble, 8 to 10 years. Around the world, you can see Tokyo, London, Cape Town, 11 years. A lot of places, Dawa Qatar, 5 years. You wouldn't believe that, but that's amazingly true. Now, look at this love and divorce thing, and this is fewer marriages, more divorces. Say that with me, please. Come on. Fewer marriages, more divorces. You can see it there on your slide that by 2017, you have a whole lot less marriages, comparatively speaking, to the population. Global divorce rate, look at that, is climbing like you wouldn't believe. 44%. People are going through stages where they start off with great excitement, but over time, it's not much fun and people are not as happy with it. Look again, the highest divorce rate, look at that, the 10 highest and the 10 lowest. If you lived in India, you have a better chance of staying married. 1% get divorced. Luxembourg, that's a country, that's not Germany, it's Luxembourg. It's near Germany, but 87%. Spain, 65%. High numbers of people don't survive marriage, divorce by category. Look at that. United States, 46%. It's amazing. Don't make it. It's not really 50%, it's between 40 to 50, depending upon what numbers you look at. But about 46% of Americans don't make it through the marriage process. Question is, what in the world happened to? Why is it that this dream people started out with doesn't work? Look at this. Christians, 37% don't make it. Catholics, 36%. Why are Christians at the top of the list? This is amazing. Can I give you a quick possibility? I think we lose a lot of our love buzz. Everything's sinful. You can't sing love songs anymore. You got to talk about Jesus on the cross. I don't know, blood of Jesus. I don't know. I mean, I don't know anyway. I think we lose our love language, and we don't even know, once we get really deep in God sometimes, how to communicate. We either sound way lustful and use language we used to use, so we probably don't need to use it anymore, or we go way over here. I am astonished at the number of Christians when I talk to them and they really open up. They do not have a formula because they didn't get it at home. They didn't see it in their mother and father. And so they don't have a technique, a way. Anything that you do well and you get paid for it, you've seen somebody else do it. And you've been trained at it. And Christians tend not to know how to talk about sex. They tend not to know, they just think they know what they're doing. And sometimes you really don't know what you're doing. Don't say, man, you might get in trouble. Because people really, as Christians, our theology gets in the way of certain conversations. But I want you to look at this high number of believers, Christians, who do not have the ability to function in marriage. They end up in trouble. Buddhists do a little better than us. That's amazing. Jews do better. Islamic folks do better. And wow, if you really want to last, be a Hindu. That's amazing. That gets down to the way, and this is important to understand, just because you're saved and just because you go to church and just because you have the Bible doesn't mean you're good at things. I think you can learn from other cultures how to value family and how to make marriage and family a priority. And I just don't, in my opinion, see that in Christian churches. I don't see that when you're around Christians. That's not what they talk about. And so I don't know that we know how to be in love, how to manage the mountain climb of love. And so we get frustrated pretty quickly, and you'll see in a minute it affects a whole lot of things. If you notice, the average length of marriage, again, is interesting. If you notice, it just is a fascinating deal. People get married. Why people get divorced? Infidelity, incompatibility. That's a big problem, more than anything. Drinking, drugs, 9%. Only 18% because of infidelity. The biggest issue is we are not compatible. Now, what does that mean? That means we're not compatible. There's this feeling that somehow when you got married, and I saw you, and I remember it was the celebrity, I won't say his name, but he's a friend of mine. He was driving his Mercedes in LA, and he saw this fine woman, turned his car around, chased the car down, and went up to her, and because he's so famous, she was like, oh. You ever had that moment, ladies? Oh. He's rich, he got money, he's in a Mercedes, and he's waving my car down. That's when you get on the phone, you say, child, you won't believe what just happened. So-and-so just stopped me. Yes, he did. And they got married. And then they had sex. And that's it. You know what you learn? There's more to her than her looks. There's more to her than the style and all the other things I imagined about him or her. Incompatibility is a verse in the Bible, Amos 3:3. It says, can two walk together except they be agreed? I don't think we enter into relationships with the right attitude. The assumption that a person is always going to be the sexually, fantastically exciting, beautiful, always on your side, romantic person is a dream. It's more like a cartoon. Here's the real deal. Compatibility is only going to be known if you relate. Most couples these days, when I counsel Christian couples, what couples did I say? Christian couples. 9 out of 10 of them, first of all, start off their marriage very sexually. I rarely counsel anybody for premarital counseling who is not already having sex. And I'm not, I think it's fascinating, amazing, that God said, I really don't want you guys to do that before you're married, because if you do, it kind of blurs the vision. You know what I mean? You don't spend enough time interacting because your bodies are pretty programmable. It's like a machine, you know what I mean? Here's how it goes. So we go out, right? This is for you single people, right? You go out on a date, right? Get you some Popeyes chicken, right? Okay, that's cheap, right? Okay. So you go to dinner, right? Then you go to a movie, right? And then you kiss, hug, and have sex. A little foreplay, whatever, right? There you go. Then next Friday, guess what you think about? Okay, we go to dinner, right? Go to a movie, right? And your body goes, all right, you know what's next now. And then every time you have an argument, you're just trying to blow it away. And if you're not careful, you're not interacting. Now, when you get married, all that changes. Because see, now you ain't got to sneak and have sex. You can have it all the time. That's why you don't have it all the time anymore. because now you can. You understand? You remember drive-in movies? Anybody remember drive-in? Who went to drive-in? Anybody know drive-in? Yeah, drive-in movies. Yeah, we have on our church property, we have a lot of land, so we have a big drive-in movie every year. It's really cool. Hundreds of people come to it. It's really cool. So many of the kids never seen a drive-in movie. Now, when you were dating, when you went to the drive-in movie, you just sit in the front seat. Why would you sit in the front seat? Can't smooch in the front seat. That's hard. So you want to get in the back seat? Yeah, okay. Get in the back seat. Get in the back seat, because that's where the action's in the back seat. Oh man, back seat. And then you fake that arm, all that. Well, and you get married, you stay in the front seat. You got to go through all that. Looking like, hey, I ain't doing all that bending, all that. Wait till we get home, okay? I ain't doing all that. Because now, I always code it in church. In church I'll say it like this because I don't want to make people nervous. You don't say sex in church, I'll say, it bothers people. Somebody left my church over it. He left my church. He told me, listen, my daughter's coming home asking me questions. I said, well, you better give us some answers anyway. Because if you don't, the street will. Anyway, but he did. He left. Anyway, praise God, bless him. Anyway, so, what was I saying? Y'all got me off. What was I saying? Focus with me. What was I saying? Don't want to sit in the front seat. Okay. Don't feel like being on it. Yeah. So what's interesting is when you really think about how easy it is at this stage of your life called marriage to get to a place where you really don't have as much interest. Everything starts to change. And for single people sometimes don't understand we're building a foundation. Can you say that with me, please? Come on. And when you're building a foundation, here's what I was going to tell you. When you're in church, when I'm in church, I say it this way. I say, you can go to the gym with anybody. You can lift barbells with anybody. That's easy. Living with a person is different. And some of you are having trouble because your early life was all sexual. I got needs. Now you got problems. Because you didn't learn each other. You didn't know, and there's an old saying, it says, a bird and a fish can fall in love, but where will they live? Think about that, that's deep. A bird and a fish can fall in love, but where will they live? Can't live with the bird, the fish can't, and the bird can't live underwater, but they're in love. So some of you say, that's what happened to my last marriage. I was the bird, she was the fish, okay? You realize that sometimes you didn't work on making sure you were compatible, agreeable. Because some lives are complicated. Some things are complicated. And you can't ignore it. You can't ignore the fact that this is complicated. There's an element to this life that's very challenging. And if we're not careful, we will not survive this life. We will not make it. Now, let me, if I can, get you to stand on your feet. Stand on your feet. I want you to walk around for 5 minutes. Don't leave the building if you can, unless you got to run to the room, okay? I want you to talk about what I've said so far that helps you. Do it now. Turn and talk. What did I say? Okay? Now, here's the deal. I want to do two things. One is I want to let Diane come up. And I've drafted 3 questions that I think would be helpful to you. Now, I'm going to come back because, I'm a Bible guy, and I'm going to give you 3 people in the Bible that I thought have great insights. As a matter of fact, I'll give you 1 tonight and 2 tomorrow, okay? We're going to talk about a family called the Zebedee family, and we'll talk about what this family did that I think helped them to last as a family. They had some courageous conversations, and it changed, I believe, the trajectory of their lives. Then I'm going to talk to you about the Cornelius family. And there's some things that Cornelius did. And there are some things that I think will help you in your marriage. And then I'm going to surprise you with one more person. For those of you that are single or those of you that are considering marriage, I'm going to talk to you about Paul. Paul was the single family guy. I believe he was married. Paul said more about sex, more about marriage than anybody. He gave the guidelines for roles of marriage, which I'll talk about tomorrow. Because part of the challenge that we have is, what am I supposed to do? I'm the wife, I'm the husband, how does this all fit? And I'll walk through some scriptures and we'll deal with some questions tomorrow morning that will help you with that whole idea of your role. Because I think if you can define your role, if you can have a courageous conversation and come up with, these are the things that I expect from you, you expect from me, and we can agree upon them. I believe we can get along. There's a series I'm doing right now on wealth. Courageous wealth. And the word wealth means to have a well-being. That's the root of the word has to do with wellness, health. That wealth is more about being a healthy person than money. Money is a part of it, but you can have money and not have well-being. You can have all the money you need and still be frustrated. That's what frustrates people as they achieve success. Some of you thought your marriage would be better when he got a better job, but now he's gone more often. And you realize that just because she got promoted, it didn't fix everything. A Benz doesn't fix it, a Lexus doesn't fix it, a big house doesn't fix it. And so it's really important for you to understand how all that fits, and we'll deal with all that over the time. Now, what I want to do first is to bring Diane up here. She's my wife for 38 years in December. Come on up, Diane. Now, I want you to put your questions right here. I gave 3 questions. Let me see. You got your questions there? 3 questions that I've asked Diane Temple, and I want you to stand right here in the front. If you would, please come up here in front so they can see you. And I'm going to ask you some questions. I want you to think about what you would say if somebody asked you this question. What do you think most families get? Why do you think most families get in trouble, in your opinion?
I believe most families get in trouble primarily because they don't have what I call a common guidebook. Now, for those of us who are believers, we know that our foundational guidebook, our foundational manual is the Bible. So that's all good and well and spiritual. Yes, that is true. That should be your primary guidebook. But as a family, what are those basic principles that you guys have to get together and decide upon? What we tend to do is that the bride has a certain definition, the groom has a certain definition. You have to get together and say, now that I'm no longer Diane Bryan, I'm Diane Florence Bryan Temple, I need to talk to Ricky Temple and say, what is our common guidebook? For example, I was born and raised in Savannah, Georgia, Southern from head to toe, was raised with the screen door and playing half rubber in the street and all that stuff. Even though he was born in Savannah, Georgia, he moved to LA as a child. He's raised with the gangbangers and, lock the door, don't talk to strangers, and the helicopters flying over the house. So you have two total different definitions. When I say I'm going to the neighborhood store to get some chips, I'm thinking the neighborhood store to get chips. He was raised, you go to the liquor store to get chips. So when I married him and he's saying, I'm going to the liquor store to get chips, it's like, I am not giving the liquor store not even a quarter of my money for no potato chips. So there's these differences that you have. So the only way you have to decide what is that common bond, what is that agreement? And so you have to make a decision, talk and say, what is your definition of breakfast? What is your definition of money? What is your definition of parenting? You have to go through each and every one. It was amazing to me that my definition of breakfast, I was raised with just, a biscuit and syrup and maybe some bacon. While he had, only child, he had biscuits and grits and pancakes. He had a buffet. And so when he was talking about breakfast, I'm thinking, what? That's too much stuff. And he's thinking, you don't have real breakfast. So you have to at least understand each other, or otherwise there's an eternal conflict. His definition of even when we were, he doesn't like me say poor, but even when we were financially limited, his definition, I had to learn that too, because I would say poor and he would say. So his definition of financially limited was at least $50 in a hideaway part of your wallet. To me, if I had $2, you see what I'm saying? So we had to be in agreement. I know that he's not comfortable with me just having $2. So we had to decide what is it we're going to agree upon. Otherwise, if you keep those two total definitions the whole time, you're just scheduled to have strife and division. So one of the things that will help you guard against all of that is make sure that there's clarity, that there's differences, and what are you going to agree upon? Because you'll have it in parenting and money and intimacy and time together across the board. You're different, but as a family, as a unit, this is what our combined decision is going to be.
Now I want to ask you the second question. Did you like that? Yes. I think it's great. The second question I want to ask you is this: list 3 smart things that stopped your family from fragmenting. What do you think? A lot of families over time, especially when the kids leave, right? Especially when the house is empty now, they start fragmenting. So what did we do to stop our family from fragmenting?
I'd say the main thing I did is I noticed the testimonies before me. I had my parents divorced when I was 4. I had almost every family member they either divorced or they lived in a relationship that I considered as a compromising relationship, in that, one wasn't faithful, but, I'm going to still hang in there and believe they're going to come back. And I know Diane Florence Bryan Temple can't take that kind of, testimony. So I had to decide that I was looking for an example that I could adopt. And I wish I could find one in my family, but I could not. So I had to say, first of all, I don't want that testimony. I'm going to learn from all the decisions that they've made. Now, if I don't see an example before me, that's when I had to say, but the Word of God promises something different. I may not have seen it, but I am believing God's word that it exists. So that's why I said, God, I'm just going to wait on you, whoever he is, even if he's in the other part of the country. I didn't know he was in California, the other part of the country. I didn't mean God to take me literally, but that's what happened, But, it's like I'm going to wait on God's perfect will for my life, because when I say I do, I plan to do, and I'm not budging. I don't want their testimony. I want to break the generational curse that's in my family and start a whole new generation of blessings for families behind me.
Come on, amen. Now let me say this before I ask you the last question, which is about single life. A lot of times when you are managing your life, it doesn't turn out to be as perfect as you planned. And you have to have a courageous conversation about that. For example, let's say there has been some infidelity. The most courageous thing you can do is have an honest moment with yourself about that decision. If you've gone through a divorce and R2, R3, R4. No, I mean, there are good people who have gone through more divorces than they'd ever planned, more challenges than they ever planned. Sitting down with yourself and saying, okay, let's have a courageous conversation about what causes me to end up in this place after 8 years, 10 years, 7 years, 5 years. Why does my runway run out after 5 years with a person? What is it that I do? Is it my expectation? I can give you a couple of hints, because, when we talk about, she made a declaration that, okay, we're not going to have that experience. My mom never married. I was born to a single parent. And my mom used to always talk about, she's going to get married. And I say, baby, mama, girl, you a trip. My mom was a trip. My mom was a trip. She's a good lady. Love her dearly. She's gone on to the Lord now. But I think sometimes when you don't have in front of you a good example, I think she was afraid of it. She dreamed it. But you need a courageous series of tools put in place. I call it the pieces. We had to put the right pieces in the right places. So she said, I'm going to wait and approach this in a way that can help me not keep having the same results I see in my family. And so we had a courageous conversation, and we were really honest. And I think when you get really, really honest, for example, if you understand how your sexuality works, and it's not just guys having sex and cheating, it's men, it's women. I mean, the stats are amazingly close. Women and men have issues, and you need to have a courageous moment with yourself. Why do I want to sleep with everybody? One pastor told me, he said, when I turn, about 40, I want to sleep with everybody. He did, that's what he told me. And he was way up in the land. I mean, he was really successful. But he was honest about at certain seasons. Just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you stop having challenges at certain ages. So women just hide it better. When men have a less problem, it's obvious. Oh, you can tell he got a problem. He look like he got a problem. Women, they're the skill. They can go to the salad bar and say, 11 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 11, I see him. Don't look, girl, don't look. You can't always tell, and I think when you have that courageous conversation, you say, I don't want to repeat the past generation's mistakes. And I don't want to sow a seed that my kids will pick up and carry forward. And so rather than feeling bad about myself, I need to deal with this. Now that's whether your partner stays with you or not. And that's not something you can control. When you make those decisions, you don't always control the outcome. But you got to have two conversations, okay? One with yourself and one with the person. Say that with me, please. Come on. One with yourself and one with the person. Okay. The one with yourself is to decide what you want to be. I don't want to be the guy that you have to see on the news media, on Atlanta News. Pastor Ricky Temple, coughing the speaker at Word of Faith, was caught sneaking out of the hotel room, and, you know, with Madam Crazy. I mean, give me a break. Who wants that? I don't want to be that guy. So I've decided, this is what I said. I told you this. If I'm going to be crazy, I'll announce it. I'll just tell everybody, okay? I'm going to be a fool tomorrow, okay? I'll just tell everybody, you can put your cameras away. I told you, it's all cool. All right. But I have to decide what I want to be, where I want my seed sown. I don't want that, and I mean that in the literal sense. I don't want my seed sown all over the world. And my wife said something the other day. You want to tell them what you told me that I could be if I really wanted to be? I see, you remember what you told me? Do you remember? You shocked me. You don't remember? I could be if I chose to be.
Imagine something like that coming out.
Yes, you said it. You said it. Come on. I could be, if I wanted to be, an international.
You could be an international adulterer.
That's what she said. She said, because you travel the world.
You travel a lot. You can afford it. You know.
That's what she said.
Everyone likes you.
Okay, that's enough. Anyway, the point. But I want you to think about that when she said that to me, and that's one of those courageous conversations, her point was not that she had some concern, right? No concern. But the issue was, gotta get that out there. But what the issue was, oh, I see, they were confessing. That's what was happening. No. But what's interesting is, I had a conversation with myself, she had a conversation with herself, and then you have a conversation with the person. So let's just say you did something, whether you forgive me or not, I've had a conversation with me. We'll have to manage this, separation if it has to be, but it's when I have a conversation with me. And at some point, lovingly said, I can't really worry about what you think as much. I need to always be aware I did that happened. I'm wrong. But now that we've established that conversation, okay, I need to talk to me. Because this is about me, my heaven and hell relationship with Jesus. And I think when you decide that you want to be different, it makes all the difference. Because she can't police me. I'm too many places. I was in Brazil, first time I was in Rio, and walking out of a hotel, and some ladies walked up to me. Oh, you're an American. I said, I'm a walking American. Walking. Ask me what I am. I know what I am. I'm walking. I'm stupid. I'm here preaching to 10,000 people, so what am I going to do? Really? Be on the news in Brazil. That's just wacky. But I need to have a conversation with myself. But then the last part, and then we'll go to the last question, Diane. The biggest thing is, God gave me this revelation when I was a teenager, around 16, 17. It came to me like this. I'll never be able to use you if you can't control your flesh. Because you can't be trusted. And that's the question. When I look in the mirror, do I want to be trusted? And I want to do whatever I can, and ladies, same for you, whatever you can to manage that. That's my side of the bridge, her side of the bridge. That's the courageous conversation. Hope that touched somebody. Now, last question for you. Ready? When you're going to get ready to get married, okay, you ready? Here's the last question for you. List three, what mistakes do you think singles make while waiting for their spouse?
We tend, because I was in that season in my 20s, we tend to complain about the wait instead of preparing ourselves for the spouse. Something
Say that
that
again.
we tend to complain about our wait instead of preparing ourselves for the spouse that God has for us. And something the best communicator on the planet, my wonderful pastor and husband said.
Say that again, girl. Come on, talk.
The best communicator on the planet, my wonderful husband and pastor, said to our young people is that you need to be who you want to attract. We tend to want this awesome, magnificent person, but in order to attract this awesome, magnificent person, you must be that awesome, magnificent person. Be who you want to attract, so you have to prepare yourself.
Miss Diane Temple, give her a big hand. Thank you, baby. Our time is moving, but let me give you a little Bible. If you open your Bible to Matthew 20 for a minute, let me give you a story. I'm not going to read it because I'm going to tell you the story, and then you can learn seven things about the relationship of this incredible family called the Zebedee family. Can you say the Zebedee family? The Zebedee family. The Bible said, let me just read it real quick. The mother of Zebedee's sons came to him, to Jesus, with her sons, kneeling down and asking something from him. And he said to her, what do you wish? Mom, two sons come to Jesus as a family. A mom, no dad mentioned, okay? They come to Jesus with the question. And the question was, Jesus' question was, what do you want? And here's what they said. Granted, these two sons of mine, she said, may sit one on your left hand, one on your right hand. I love the fact that they're ambitious. There's a whole study of the power of ambition, dreams, and having passion. This is a family with a dream, okay? I want you to understand, your family needs to be like this. Matthew chapter 20, verse 20 through 24. Your family needs to be like this. A family with a dream and a passion, a plan. I like that, a plan. What are we going to be? Where are we headed? I like the fact that the woman's involved in the conversation, their mom. Don't know what happened to dad. But what's engaging, what's amazing is it's a model of what a family should be. This is what your family should strive to be. Jesus basically tells them, I can't just give it to you guys. I'm sorry. This is for those for whom it's prepared. You may want to be a family in business, but I can't give you that. God's not going to just give you that. You have to earn that. You can go in Walmart and be impressive, but you got to do what they did to get what they got. Excuse my grammar. So let me give you some things you should probably do. Ready? If you want to help your family, okay, be better. Number one, everybody say decide together. So you decide. And these are in your notes if you download the notes. They decided together. Number two, they presented together. The whole entire family came to Jesus. They presented together. This was a unified front. They decided together, they presented together, and then thirdly, they worked together. Come on, say they worked together. They worked together. I think we work apart. We're trained in this culture to work apart, not together. I'm a big believer in families being all in together. We got 5 family members, 5 different households that represent our families. One household has no car, and the other 4 don't care. What it should be is all 5 care about who does not have a car, and we all chip in together. That's what it should be. But that's not often how it works. So they decided together, they presented together, they worked together. Come on, say they decided together. They decided together. Presented together. Worked together. And watch this now, they took risks together. It was risky to go talk to Jesus about this. He could have just said no. Could have been mean to them, but they took a risk. You get further in life when you feel you're not by yourself taking the risk. And then, I love this, they look past gender. They let mama speak. In a culture that was dominated by men, they weren't afraid to let mama be involved. A female was answering the question. That's significant in this culture. They decided together, they presented together, they worked together, they took risks together, they looked past gender, and then they sought wisdom from a senior family member. I love that. I love the fact that can you imagine this conversation? They sat down with mom, who was older than them, and they asked the opinion. What do you think about this, Mom? We want to be leaders with Jesus. Notice this family is having a spiritual discussion, a practical discussion about their dreams and their future plans. Some of you will never see your life and your family change until you come to a place where you at least work together in a common direction. There's a tremendous amount of unity here. And then lastly, one time they decided together, presented together, worked together, took risks together. They looked past gender. They sought wisdom, number 6, from a senior family member. They allowed somebody who was older than them talk to them. That is, boy, the key to fixing a lot of your marriage issues. You won't let anybody with gray hair talk to you. My marriage, my life, keep people out of my business. Yeah, if they're not helpful, but if somebody can be helpful, let them help you. You may need a mediator. You may need somebody to help you sort through your philosophies and your views. Because maybe you don't have all the pieces that you need. Repeat this with me, please. Say, success comes in pieces. But you got to have the right pieces. If you don't have the right pieces, you can't. You may be a good person, but you just don't have the right pieces. When I first went to college, I didn't really have much support and help. My mom supported me going, but it wasn't like she went to school and I had to kind of figure it out. And it's amazing that I've gotten as far as I've gotten academically, but I just didn't, in the early days, have the pieces. It took a long time for me to get to the place I can get a master's degree because I didn't understand that, you know what I'm saying, that whole thing. And, those doctorate degrees, all that stuff was like, what do you mean by that? When Diane's family, I mean, they were like school teacher people. And let me tell you, when I got married to her, I knew I didn't have all the right pieces when we sat down to do homework with the kids. She's a school teacher by profession. And when she sat down, it was like, okay, let's see what happened in first period, second period, third period. And she kind of understood it all. She taught first grade. She started off teaching high school science at 20. She's a bad girl, I bow. I mean, oh yeah, she was so young. They used to say, young lady, you been to go to class? She said, I'm a teacher. She was really young looking. But what's powerful is, I mean, her major was in biology, minor in chemistry, is that right? I got it right this time? Right, biology, minor in chemistry. I mean, so she's a real, smart person. But and so when we sat with the kids, she approached it like a pro. I went, okay. I just wondered, did you do your work? Okay, good. There wasn't none of that with her, man. She had a strategy, boy. I really found myself learning that I just didn't have the pieces. And for some of you that are struggling in marriage, the real problem is you just don't have the pieces. You don't know how to deal with a woman. You don't know how to manage your sexual attitudes. You don't know how to manage money. You don't know how to manage a blended family. You never had the tools put in place to show you. And if you don't ask anybody that's older than you that has that experience, imagine God's original plan. Adam and Eve would never die. He would still be walking around and say, I was the first man, If he was that was God's plan, you know what I mean? I mean, it's just amazing how phenomenal it is. I don't know if you ever studied how many people have lived on the planet. I think it's like 11 trillion. A bunch of people have lived on the planet over the years. It's like 6 billion or so, whatever now. But God's plan was, I don't know, we must be going to planets or something, because if all of us never died, the Garden of Eden was going to have to grow. But what's amazing is, for some of us, we just never had the right pieces. And from the fall of man, the pieces have been falling away from us. You talk about your daddy not being there, he didn't have the pieces. If you really want to know what happened to your daddy, ask about his daddy and his daddy. I was reading something the other day, it just horrified me. Man, it's a book. With me, it's always a book. And man, I was so horrified by it. I couldn't hardly think. It just took over one morning. It's called The American Slave Coast. The American Slave Coast, by Ned and Constance Sublett. The American Slave Coast. I I understood slaves were treated like cattle, but I didn't really understand, and then this is to go to the point, that I don't understand sometimes that slavery was 3 generations or 4 generations back. It wasn't that long ago. And I didn't fully, I don't know if you know this or not, but we know my slave owner's name was Spalding. He was a U.S. congressman. He owned my family. Yeah, that's pretty deep, really, really. You know the guy's name. You can look him up, Spalding. He's a U.S. congressman. And something, look at that guy, I used to Google, I used to look at you. Just look at his picture, go, you. But we escaped, Mom. My dad, he did. My granddaddy got away. It's like, you. But in the middle of that moment, there's something about realizing, I read this, they used to make them up north. There was a whole trade. As a matter of fact, the northern slaves, the difference between Virginian slaves, right, and the slaves in South Carolina. The slaves in South Carolina, a lot of them came from Africa. They were from the slave trade. They brought them in on ships. But up north, they had this whole mating thing going. And what do you call when you mate horses? What do you call it? Breeding. Yeah, breeding. They breeded slaves. And so when you would breed with your mother, they'd put bags over their heads so they wouldn't know there was a family member. So when you talk about sexual dysfunction, when you go back, okay, so not your daddy, not his daddy, but his daddy. His daddy. Lived all in that. Slave owner would breed with a slave and have several children and would send his own children, sell them in slavery, his own blood children. There was this horrifying image of an older lady kind of back up against the table and the slave owner standing over her, smiling. And it was this petrified look. I didn't fully understand. You couldn't avoid fornication, even if it was your religious view. It was part of his right, their right. So when you start talking about, okay, how people feel and sexual dynamics, do you really understand? Not justifying behavior, but just trying to put it in context. That's why, sir, you need to pause and say, where did this come from? This whole idea that this is okay. And this sense that women have, feeling, the women, your great-great-great-great-grandmama lived that life. You wow. For me, that was amazing. So for your family to decide together, to present together, to work together, to take risks together, look past gender, get wisdom from senior family members could be a real blessing, because senior family members can put your life in context. They can help you recognize yourself. And then if you go further, I'm going to Africa, I'm going to Ghana in November, and one of the things I love about going to Africa and preaching and knowing people from Africa is they often say African Americans don't really know their history, they don't know their heritage, they don't really fully understand themselves because they don't understand African. And I'm not a person maybe totally qualified to help you understand that, but I am so aware that so much of who we are and how we think is rooted way beyond what you've experienced. And sometimes I've decided to give my father a chance. He didn't have the pieces because his father didn't have the pieces and his father didn't have the pieces. And success comes in pieces, but you got to find the right pieces. I've got to understand myself, and I've got to be courageous enough to talk about it. And then the last thing that's important about this family is they didn't crumble under criticism. Say that with me, please. Come on. They didn't crumble under criticism. In verse 24, there's this tremendous conversation where the disciples hear that these guys want to be these great leaders, and they complain. And I love the fact that these two guys and the mom just look past the criticism. If your family ever decides to change, here's what's going to happen. People are not going to always celebrate it. There will be people who will struggle with you because it will sound like you're trying to be something bigger now. But I think it's good to want to be better now. And it's okay to accept the fact that some people are going to struggle. That, my friend, is part of success. That, my friend, is part of what's going to happen. I'm going to close with one final story before I let you ask me a few questions, and that is the Cornelius family, Acts chapter 10. This family is impressive to me because now you've got mom and dad and everybody together. This is not like, you got sort of a family that's kind of like dad's no longer in the picture, maybe he died, don't know what happened, James and John's now. When you look at the family of Cornelius in Acts chapter 10, they're all together. And what's interesting, the Bible describes it this way. There was a man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of what was called the Italian regiment. So this is an army guy, hardworking guy, full-time, and his whole family is in it with him. And the Bible says he was a devout man. Now watch this now. He's hardworking, but he's a devout man who feared God and his whole household. Everybody in his household. That should be our goal. And what's interesting is he gave alms generously to all the people, and he prayed to God always. This was a giving guy, known for his giving and known for his prayer life. And about the 9th hour of the day, he saw clearly in a vision, an angel of God coming and saying to him, Cornelius. And when he observed him, he was afraid and said, what is it, Lord? So he said to him, listen to this now. This is in Acts chapter 10, verse 4. He said, your prayers and your alms have come up as a memorial before God. In other words, you, sir, have impressed God. Two things. One, the fact that you were a person who's balanced. He's balanced career and family. He's a busy guy, growing in the ranks, growing in his business, but he's balanced career and family. Secondly, he's known for two things, praying and giving. Come on, say it with me. Come on. Praying and giving. I think that should be your goal. I think that should be what you target. We want to be a praying family and a giving family. And we want to be a balanced family. I really believe that I can make money and still have time with my family. I believe that I can be successful and achieve a balance, but that does not come without courageous conversations and making courageous changes and coming up with courageous plans and making sure you put your money where your mouth is. And then you have courageous priorities. It is so important for you if you want this in your life. And here's the deal. You can go to any conference you want. It won't make it happen for you. But you got to decide. I promise you one more, and his name is Paul. 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Paul is a guy who really says a whole lot to us about the single life. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save him for in the morning. So if you come back, you get to hear me talk about Paul. But Paul is the guy who shows us a lot. But I promise you some questions, and I'm going to go 20 minutes with questions. So we're going to do this. You get to do this again with me. Please stand up on your feet one more time. Yes, you do. And you get to say, have you had a good time so far? Come on, have you really? You have? No, don't say it. I asked you. Have you had a good time? All right. Here's what you're going to do. You ready? We're going to take a 2-minute. How many minutes did I say? 2 minutes. Questions for Pastor Rick, okay? We're going to let you ask me questions. And if you have questions, I'm going to let them say it out loud. I don't have time for them to write anything down. I want you to, they're going to come to the microphone. Raise your hand. I'm going to repeat it loud. If you would please come up with questions you want to ask Pastor Rick. You got 3 minutes. Give you 3 minutes. Turn to your neighbor and say, what questions do you have for Pastor Rick? Turn right now. 3 questions you have for Pastor Rick. Okay, good. Okay, now do me a favor. We're going to let you ask me questions. If you want to, who has a question for me? Let's see. Who's got one? You got one? Okay. You want to come to the mic? Can you do that? Come to the mic. What's your question?
Thank you so much for this evening. It's been absolutely amazing. My question for you is, have you ever in your marriage gone through something that you didn't feel as if you guys were going to be able to overcome?
I felt like it. I felt like it was awkward and challenging. Thank you. You can go see. We've had moments where we felt bad, but I don't know that we ever thought we couldn't get over it. I mean, see, I really don't think, let me say this to you. You don't have to get to that place. But if you got there, you can say we're not going back there. That's why I love this series I'm doing at our church on wealth, because you don't have to be broke. If you've grown up with broke people, you think it's like a lifestyle. Everybody doesn't have money problems. Everybody doesn't have relationship problems where they want to get divorced and I'm leaving you and storming out. That's kind of a choice. A couple can decide. You can decide to be to work on time. How many of you are always to work on time? Raise your hand. Okay, thank you for not raising your hand if you know it's not totally true. I have not always been on time to work. I've learned over the years to be. But how many of you have never, ever been a late person? Ever. Ever. See, people like you get on my nerves. See, you're just perfect. You know what I'm saying? But everybody doesn't have your issue. How many of you have never really had big transportation problems? You always had a car or something to get around in. See, we caught the bus most of my life up until I was 15. Everybody doesn't have the same story. You can actually make a decision to have a courageous conversation and change this mess. You don't have to have a messy house. Here's what you do. You ready? Here's what fixes it. All you got to do is don't do that. Just don't do that. Just don't drop your jacket. You know what I'm saying? Just here you go, hang it up. That's it. That changes all that. So it's all about decisions. So, but when I've seen couples in that place, my advice to them is to try to let that be the last time you be there. Okay? My sister, you had a question. Pass the mic to her, please. Thank you.
I also second thanking you and your lovely wife for putting on this. What do you do when you don't have the pieces? When you haven't seen a healthy marriage to emulate, how do you now try to build a healthy marriage when your marriage is already dysfunctional?
Seek, knock, and ask. It's all about seeking, knocking, and asking. It's most of us didn't have the pieces. So we come from, my mom never got married, and her parents had, went through two divorces, right? Didn't divorce. She didn't. Thank you for clarifying that for me. She did. She had two challenging marriages. So what I'm saying is, you have to say, I'm going to get the pieces. If you don't have an education, what do? You go get it. If you don't have a job, you go and get a job. You have to go get it. It's really funny. Sidebar, real quick. I was shocked the other day because I'm getting ready to go back to school. It's just a thing in my head I want to do. But what's funny is I was in a store the other day, and these young guys were talking about getting another degree, right? And I said, and I was just talking, and I didn't know they knew who I was. Both of them had been to my church. The size of the church, I didn't know them anyway. So, and they, at the end of the conversation, said, "Oh, Pastor, we used to go to your church." Really? Oh, nice. And what's your name? So, they said they're getting a degree, a master's degree or something. And I said, well, I'm thinking about going back and getting a degree in something. And it hit me. How many people at 60 talk about getting anything? You used to talk about getting stuff. Now you don't get anything. You have no dream, no future. You always talk about the past, never the future. I've learned that. It's amazing. So my point is, sometimes in marriage, you come to that place where you're not trying to get anything. You kind of accept it. So watch this. I'm spitting. Okay, well, so now, how about this? Stop spitting. It's a bad marriage. It's bad. Every day is bad. Okay, stop it. Let's stop that. And let's change this. Seek, knock, and ask. Be surprised what you could find. I found pieces, so can you. I'm giving you some tonight. Somebody else, question you'd like to ask me? Is that a hand? Okay. Now, are there no more questions? Tell me what I said tonight that was the most helpful to you. What did I say tonight that was the most helpful to you? You leave with what thought? You help me by saying what? If you don't have the pieces, get the pieces. What else did I say? Yes, in the back. Have two conversations, one with yourself and one with your spouse, right? Yes. When you get back together, I'm just repeating it. So when you get back together, write down the things you want to have, right? With the things you want to change. And that's your homework. Changes we want to make. These are the changes. And be reasonable. Don't write 20 things down. Everybody say 3.
3.
You overwhelm each other. 3. Everybody say 3, okay? You got it? All right, where we at? Yes. Be able to adjust to the climb. People get altitude sickness in marriage. The higher you go, first floor, second floor, kiss, hug, in, sex, all that's first, second, third floor. And so when you get to the 10th floor, you got to deal with bills, life, personality, political views, whatever, all the other stuff that comes with it. Sometimes those things are more complicated. And some of you are on level 55 and 60, and you are dizzy. Children, blended families, all the things that we have to negotiate. They come in the house and you talking about, well, I love you like my children. No, you don't. These are new people. I don't even know you. You got big feet. I don't know you. You got to talk to them and you got to get honest. I'm learning you. We are going to be close. You can't be as close to me as my kids. I've known my kids all their life. You knew. And you don't act like my kids. Matter of fact, you bad. Okay, let me stop. I mean, to you, it's really strange. You know what I'm saying? And you have to kind of negotiate that. So where we at? What greatest thing I said today that helped you? Where are we? I saw some hands. Yes, sir, in the back. Success comes in pieces, not in chunks. It's pieces. You got to work the pieces. Everybody say, work the pieces.
Work the pieces.
Yes, sir. You got the plan. That's right. You got to take time and mean that. What? The guidebook. You got to get your guidebook. That's right. Yes. The same thing, guidebook. Okay, this is the guidebook role. Here, anybody else? Yes. 7-day cycles. Yeah. Stop trying to vacation every year. Here's what you do, right? You don't spend any time together. You hope on, Valentine's Day? He's gonna spend some time with me. Finally, we're gonna go out together and he's gonna give me a rose that he got at the grocery store. And this is gonna be our romantic one day a year. And then what we're going to do is go on vacation for 5 days. We're going to all go down to Disney. We're going to get in the car and drive 1,000 hours. And we're going to hate each other on the way. And we're going to be so mad. And so we're going to drive down here and stand in line for 4 hours to get on a 2-minute ride. And we're going to have such a great time, and then we're going to all jam, everybody in a little bitty room. All 4 of us are going to all jam in a little bitty room, and we can't have sex for 5 days. It's going to be an abstinence week. This is a week of abstinence because the kids are right over there. You know what I'm saying? So why don't y'all go play? Don't y'all want to go walk around the hotel? Y'all need to go around the hotel. It's a beautiful hotel. This is so because we're too cheap to get 2 rooms, you understand? I ain't paying for no 2 rooms now. I ain't gonna get that. No, this is an $89 deal, baby. So you're out there all day, you're hot, you're mad, you're frustrated. Once a year, vacation. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. I think you need to come up with a better plan than that. And have that honest conversation where you work together and create a life every 7 days. That's why, you'd be surprised. Something simple, and doesn't have to be expensive. It could be something simple that can change your life. And if you can't afford a vacation, do a what? Staycation. You know what a staycation is? You get all dressed up. What you do is you act like a tourist. You get your I Love Atlanta shirt. You know what I'm saying? And you put it on, and you walk around like you confused. And it's like we don't. And you get on the tram or the train. Something that the tourists do. You know what I'm saying? And just go, oh, that's nice. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, wow. And then you go home. And then you come back out the next day and look like a tourist again. That's how you do it. Shoot. What? All right, where we at? What else did I say that really spoke to you? Yes?
Start with what they're interested in.
Start with what they're interested in. If it's always about what you're interested in, and every conversation is about what you're interested in, then you're not going to get far. Nobody wants to just be you. They want to be who they are. One of my greatest challenges is I've always told them, be who you are. Be who you are. Say what you want to say. We'll work it out. Just because if I don't let her be who she is, and it's complicated. Sometimes she's not me, and that's a problem. You heard that, right? It is. It's a problem for some people that you're not them. One of the greatest lines my wife ever gave me. You ready? This is one of the greatest lines. You ladies, you're going to love this. You wonder what I'm going to say, right? Because you said so many great things, but this is the one. You're covering your face, right? Here you go. I was talking to her, and she said, do me a favor. If you want to tell me what to say, just write it down, and I'll read it to you. Told me to write it down. I said, what do you mean? She said, no, because I'm saying all the wrong things. And it's really complicated to talk to you sometimes because you want me to say it and phrase it a certain way. So if you just write it down, I'll just read it to you. I'll read what you say back to you. And then you'll be happy. And I said, that's not what I meant. You know what I'm saying? Tomorrow, I talk about roles. Tomorrow I'll talk about this whole issue of the roles in marriage. If you go on a job and you don't know where you're supposed to go and you don't know what you're supposed to do, ladies, I'll talk about this incredible word, submission. And I promise you'll like me. I promise you. See, something quickened right there when I said it. It's a cuss word. That's a cuss word. It wasn't my idea, it was God's idea, but let me tell you, guys often misunderstand what that means. And I also think that loving your wife doesn't mean you stop loving yourself. How about an amen to that? Amen. Did you learn something today? Yes. Thank you. I promise you, tomorrow we're going to be there. Let me give you an email address. You ready? Okay, write this email address down. Because some of you are just going to say, okay, I'm going to email you, okay, and then I'll ask you on email, but I'm not going to ask you in public, okay? My whole church has my email address. It's really cool. And I told them I'll do it as long as I can. Okay, I'm the pastor, ready, right? At what church? Overcoming by Faith, okay, .org. I'm the pastor at Overcoming, you overcome by what? Faith. Overcoming by Faith.org. There's also on the website, if you click on rickytemple.com, you can also click on a link and you say talk to me and it will also come to me that way. So you can do it either way, directly, pastor. It's pastor, not the pastor, right? I said the pastor. Did I say that? I'm sorry. Pastor, Pastor, at overcomingbyfaith.org. And a lot of you Word of Faith folks have found it anyway, and y'all been emailing me anyway. So now you officially know it, and you can send me a question. Let's pray, shall we? Father, I thank you for this event today. I thank you for what it represents. I thank you for the hand of God upon this moment. I pray that the marriages are better, that they'll go home and have a courageous conversation, not a courageous argument. But they would say, we need to pause, and we can be better than this. And so I give you all the praise and all the glory for it in Jesus' name. Everybody say amen. 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 I want to thank you. Let me say this, because I know they're going to raise an offering in a minute, and I know you didn't ask me to do this, but I want to say a word. This is such a cool thing, and I'm going to give something to this because I like the fact that this church is trying to pull people together to provide a ministry to married couples. And I want you to have plenty of money so you can keep doing this. How about an amen, huh? Amen. Come on, amen. I want you to have plenty of money. And I want you to realize that one of the things I've learned about giving is, that there's something that's released into my life when I invest in good things. I always call it sowing good seed in good soil. And the soil of marriage is a good soil, a good seed to sow into. And I'll let your leaders come up here and talk to you for a quick second before I sit down here. But I want to say thank you for letting me come. Thank you for the opportunity. And God bless you. You're in their hand. God bless you.